Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is George Herrera with the Queens Home Team at Keller Williams Realty. In today's video, I'm talking about escalation clauses. If you're in the market to buy, or if you've been thinking of buying a property, you may have heard of this term and you may be confused as to how it works or when you use it. So I just wanted to give a broad overview of this negotiating tactic in case you are in a situation where you might be able to use it. So an escalation clause, what is it? It's pretty much what it sounds like. It's a clause in your offer. So it's a term of your offer. Usually this is always used in multiple offer situations. So when it's a competitive property, you want to use different types of strategies to try to help you win the bid, and escalation clauses can be a good tool in that type of situation. So the way it works is that you give an offer, and your offer will have a price cap. It'll have a maximum offer, but it'll have an escalation clause, which means, let's say, for example, the house is going for $500,000, your escalation clause might look something like this. It might say, I'm willing to pay $1,000 over the highest offer up to $515 or something like that. So you have a price cap, which is up to that max price. You have the escalation amount. So you have the amount of how much your offer will increase with each highest offer. And so that's the escalation amount. So you want to make sure that you give the escalation amount. So I'm willing to pay X amount over the highest offer up to a specific price, and that's your price cap. So that's how the escalation clause works. It really works well in multiple offer situations, and the key when you're using an escalation clause is really knowing the comps, knowing the value, and then knowing what your max price is. It does make things a lot easier. So instead of guessing, and a lot of times they'll ask for highest and best, and let's say the house is worth 500 and you might give a highest and best of 5, but if you're willing to pay up to 510, 515, 520, whatever the case is, then an escalation clause is a way for you to give your max offer, but without necessarily having to give that offer. So it'll escalate as the highest price comes in, whatever the highest bidder. You're beating them, but only by your escalation amount. So it could be a way of protecting yourself from just jumping in and giving that max price right out of the gate. So that's how an escalation clause works. A few other things you might want to consider. When should you use an escalation clause? So an escalation clause will help you stand out. That's a reason why you might want to use it. So other people might be just giving their standard offer, and an escalation amount. Most home buyers don't use escalation clauses, so it definitely would make your offer stand out. Sometimes it can even confuse the sellers, but you just have to make sure you or your agent explains it properly to the listing agent or to the seller. If you want to streamline the bidding process, that's a good way to do it. Like I mentioned previously, a lot of times if you make an offer, you might be willing to pay more, but you're hesitant in giving that higher offer. So you're just giving one. We see this all the time. We ask for highest and best, we get highest and best, and then once we pick a winner, then we're getting new offers from a bunch of other buyers that made an offer previously. So with an escalation clause, you can really think to yourself, what's the max amount that I'm willing to pay for this property? And then you can create an escalation clause that say, I'm offering this price, but I'm willing to pay $2,000, $5,000, whatever it is, over the highest price up to this max price. And at least that way you get to give that max offer and you won't have any regrets if you lose it. All right, so now, when should you not use an escalation clause? So the times when you should not use an escalation clause if there's not multiple offers. So if there's no multiple offers, then you just want to go in and negotiate and try to get the best price and terms possible. But if there's multiple offers, that's when you tend to use an escalation clause to try to help you win the property. But escalation clauses, when there's no multiple offers, is not advisable. It really doesn't make sense in those situations. So you just want to negotiate standard negotiating terms on those. You also don't want to use it if a seller is not accepting escalation clauses. Here in Queens, you don't see it often where a seller says that we're not accepting any escalation clauses. But what does happen is that sometimes buyers or their agents will give an offer with an escalation clause, and if it's not explained to the seller properly, they can get confused with it, and they might say, that's too confusing, I'm not even willing to entertain that. So it just has to be explained properly. But if for some reason the listing agent or the seller tells you, no, we're not taking any escalation clauses, then you know that you just have to give your best offer. And then also make sure you know that you're giving up the chance to negotiate. When you use an escalation clause, they know your max, what you're willing to pay, the max price. So at that point, you're kind of giving up leverage in terms of being able to go back and forth negotiating because they already know the max that you're willing to pay. But if it's a multiple offer situation, I mean, there's no leverage anyway. The leverage is with the sellers either way. So 3 things that you want to make sure though when you give your offer, right? You want to make sure that you give your escalation amount, so how much the offer will increase over each highest bidder. Make sure you have a price cap, so what's your max offer. And the last thing, and this is important, this is what we do for our buyers, when we use an escalation clause, we tell the listing agent or the seller that the only thing we ask for if we win the bid is that we want to see a copy of the binder of the offer that we beat out. So we just want proof for peace of mind for our buyers, for ourselves. We just want peace of mind that we did in fact have to beat out that offer. And so we ask for proof of the highest offer that we beat with our escalation clause. So that's also key. And just keep in mind, an escalation clause is not a guarantee. Just because you use an escalation clause doesn't necessarily mean you will win the property. Many times the seller is looking for the highest price, but there's also situations where it's about price, it's about terms, it's about conditions. So you have to get creative with all of your terms as well if you want to win a multiple offer situation. It doesn't always come down to price. Many times it's price and terms. So just keep that in mind. But keep this in your toolbox for when you're out there making offers, looking at properties. Definitely keep in mind that an escalation clause is a negotiating tactic that you can use on those competitive properties to try to win them. All right, hopefully that made sense. If you have any questions about escalation clauses and how you use them, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I'll also include in the description a link to a good article from Fannie Mae that actually describes escalation clauses, when to use them, when not to use them, and things like that. So I'll include that there. And as always, if you have any suggestions for future videos, if you have any questions that you want us to shoot a video for, then just drop them in the comments below, or you can visit queenshometeam.com/askqht, and then we'll make sure to shoot a video or get an answer for you as soon as possible. Thanks as always for tuning in, y'all. Stay tuned for the next episode. Stay safe and take care.